recording and the translation. We have the monthly review of the Ukrainian economy, prepared together with the German economic team and the Center of Economic Strategy, working under the support of the government of Germany, helping Ukrainian government with issues of economic policy. My name is Gleb Wishlinsky. I'm the Executive Director of the Center of Economic Strategy. And we have today, as usual, apart from our regular monthly review of the economy, we have a special topic, which is unfortunately the time when we started this topic, when we defined, and until the time when it lasted, this topic has become even more acute, as one of the colleagues said from our team. Possibly next time we will discuss some sweet pandas, so these acute questions which we are coming up with, they will not become more acute for the war. But we will be talking in any case. Let's stop joking. Let's see how the economy of Kharkiv is surviving and developing with this difficult security situation. The English translation and the Ukrainian translation you can switch on using the Zoom panel. The questions are better to be asked in Q&A, which I will collect and I will pass to our participants, both from speakers of CES as well as the panelists. In the chat, it's better to put some technical questions related to organizing. We plan to finish today at 6:45 because luckily a lot of people with whom we have turned from the Kharkiv business and representatives of the government and representatives of the administration. And we need to see what is happening in Kharkiv. We start with the traditional review of economy, and from our presentation, I would like to pass the floor to Gary Palushkin from the German economic team, who is the project manager for Ukraine. Gary, the floor is yours.
Прошу розм'ютися. Щось не включилося. Поки що червоне ще.
It's still red.
Ніколи не було. О, все.
We didn't have any questions. Now it's good. Good afternoon from Berlin. My name is Gary Palushkin. It's great to listen to this webinar. I'm the coordinator of the Federal Ministry and Climate Protection. I'm advising on the government of Ukraine in the issues of economic policy. In 15 years, in the beginning of the full-scale aggression, together with CES, we're doing the monthly webinars, which give the possibility to discuss the status of economy, which has the regular in the specific topic. Today, our topic of the economic revival of Kharkiv. They have a lot of academic and innovative centers. I'm very much happy that their representatives are present in this discussion. But the Russian attacks bring to difficult civil and economic difficulties. But Kharkiv demonstrates that quick recovery means survival. I'm very much thankful that this is the topic of today's discussion. Many thanks.
Дякую, Гаррі.
Thank you, Gary.
Дякую за твою українську, яка
Thank you for your Ukrainian, which is getting better and better.
До кожного нашого щомісячного заходу. Це лише третій
It's
захід, де
getting
Гаррі
better and better. It's
хоча
the
є сам
third event where
виходцем з
Gary
України,
is
але більшу частину життя
presenting
провів
in
за межами
Ukrainian,
України.
and
Зараз
he
переходимо
spent
до,
most of
власне,
his life
короткого
outside of
огляду
Ukraine.
економіки в квітні. Я передаю
We are
слово
looking
нашому
at
економісту
the
Максиму
review of
Соловейку.
the economy
Сьогодні у нас
in
буде трошки коротший огляд,
April.
ніж
We will
зазвичай,
have a
власне, через
shorter
більший фокус,
review
який ми
because of the
приділили
bigger focus
Харкову.
which we gave to Kharkiv.
Так, Макс, ти почав
Max, you already started
але щось я сам
screen
не
sharing,
бачу.
but I don't see the screen yet.
Давайте з
That's
Володимира.
perfect.
Володимира, я включу
Let's
ваші
start
слайди.
from Volodymyr.
Да, будь ласка. Да, Володя,
Let me
давайте.
start your
Ми
slides.
завжди робимо короткий
We are
огляд
doing always this short review of the main sectors of the Ukrainian economy, and let us start from the energy sector, from which a lot depends in terms of the economy of Ukraine. When we see the forecasts of the economic development for 2024, when we hear that the economy is expected to grow 4 or 5%, very often we hear the condition, under the condition if the energy system would provide the needs for this economy. Would that be possible to provide that? It's an open question. It has become open because of the massive shelling of the Russian Federation onto the energy objects, and this happened in March and April. The consequences are very heavily felt now, and they will likely to be enhanced with warming up in Ukraine. Now, a lot of companies are working with the schedules of supplying electric energy. These schedules are adjusted regarding most of them remain with lights but with schedules. Those who have connected electric energy based on the latest data, the electric energy is not connected with 134,000 consumers. Most of them are, of course, in the frontline regions, especially in the Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Kherson regions. We see that the imports of electric energy in April amounted to one of the biggest. It amounted to 213 gigawatt hours. That's a huge increase versus March. And the situation is not improving over the last 50 days. If you can see the right part, there are only two green graphs. That means 2 days out of the rest of the months, Ukraine did not export. So you see, Ukraine is a net importer. And we can see the first days of May, Ukraine is importing a record values of electric energy, which is going to make May the biggest imports. This record for the time being belongs to December of 2022, and it was possible to send this scale. The next slide is metallurgy. We're not seeing any cuts of electric energy. We don't see that they influence it. We see the gradual growth of all indicators. Most of them is the production of steel, 715,000 tons. That's already the record of the wartime. We can slowly compare it with the indicators before the full-scale invasion. It's 39% in steel. In pig iron and rolled products, it's 34% from previous years, from pre-war years. So we have some free available capacity at the metallurgical companies. There is a possibility for export. The Ukrainian corridor is working. It allows to export not only the agri products, that we will talk about a little bit later, as well as the metallurgical products. And we also see this, that it's not only the there is the growth of regular steel, but also the exports of iron ore, which is growing twice in volumes and in terms of in cash value, because iron ore is somewhat less expensive. And let's go to the next slide, and we will talk about agriculture. In April, we also have some record indicators. We have 66.6 million tons of export of oil and grains, oilseeds and grains. That's the biggest, that's really a good result since the full-scale invasion. That is provided with corn, 4.1 million ton, and wheat, 1.9 million ton, as well as barley with 231,000 tons. All in all, we have exported 8.3 million tons of agri-products. Apart from traditional grains and oilseeds, we also export sunflower oil and traditional high volumes of the goods, which is exported in hundreds of thousands of tons. That's the sunflower cake that is coming when we produce sunflower oil. That's what is the balance from the sunflower oil production. So we can see that the exports of the oilseeds is somewhat falling, unlike other categories of goods, which help us get record results, as well as the sowing campaign is underway. Some almost 10 million hectares were sown, including 4.3 with grains and 4 million tons with sunflower. And we will talk a little bit about export of services. We see that this crisis was not systematic. We saw this in the beginning of the year. The exports of IT services, it remains as the main service that gives, that has the biggest 2 months, and it started the renewal. It grew to $565 million, and this share grew in the overall export of services. Now it's 39.2%. The geographical, the growth was also fine in March versus February. Also, the IT services are exporting also to United Kingdom, Malta, Cyprus, and Israel. We are talking a lot about business. We started from the real sectors. A few words about the overall macroeconomic situation. There was the report of the National Bank, which also includes some macro forecasts. It also includes some assessments of NBU. The GDP will grow by 3%. It's called by the less budget expenditures. First 3 months we had problems with getting budget support from other countries. There was a difficult situation, so the economic recovery. And NBU expects that in 2025 the growth will increase with the normalization of the economic activity. Also in April, for the second time in a row, the expectations of the business were positive. In accordance to the survey that is done by NBU, the index, positive index, was 50 points more than neutral. All of this were positive. All of these positive expectations are quite conditional because they slightly go over the neutral level, slightly less, and they will be already negative. Most positive are the expectations in the construction sector, which believes after the activization of orders from the state, the condition will be better than what it used to be. Thank you.
Дякую. Далі прошу
Thank you.
Машу
I would like to
Томіліна,
ask
нашу
Masha
аналітика.
Tamilina, our economist, please.
Слайди.
Вітаю. Сподіваюсь, мої слайди
Hopefully you
видно,
can
Це
see my
видно.
slides. Yes,
Дякую.
absolutely fine.
Отже, поговоримо про
So,
монетарну політику.
regarding the
І, як
humanitarian
завжди,
policy,
почнемо
and as
з
usual, we will
наших
start
ключових ставок.
from our key
Щодо облікової.
rates. Regarding the key rate,
Значить, наприкінці квітня
in
Центральний банк
the
знизив облікову
end
ставку
of
до
the
12,5%.
April, we
Скорочено
had
на 1
decreased
процентний
the
пункт,
key
пов'язаний
policy
з
rate to
дещо нижчим, ніж
13.5%,
раніше очікувалося.
and this is lower than what
Фактичною
was
і прогнозованою інфляцією, а
expected
також
in terms of the
зниження
forecasted
ризиків
inflation,
надходження
as well
міжнародної
as
допомоги.
with the risks of
Очікується, що
lowering
помірне
international
зниження
assistance.
облікової
We
ставки
expect
немає
that this moderate decrease of the key rate shall
того
not
інтересу до
harm
гривневих
the
активів,
interest to
оскільки за ставкою
grivna
за облігаціями і депозитами
assets,
все ще
because
залишається набагато
this
вищим,
rate
ніж
still
очікувана
remains
інфляція.
quite higher than the
Також
inflation.
разом із зниженням облікової
Also,
ставки
with the
знизилися ставки за
key rates,
депсертифікатами і за
we had
тримісячними сертифікатами.
lower rates for debt
І
certificates
ставка
and
за
3-month certificates, and the interest rate on
рефінансування теж
refinancing
знизилася.
loans also were
В
decreased by
цілому
2 percentage
Національний банк
points.
розглядає
In
можливість
general,
подальшого
National
зниження
Bank
облікової ставки до 15% до кінця року. Щодо дохідності за річними ОВДП,
regarding
то вони поступово продовжують дещо
they continue
скорочуватися,
to decrease
що, по суті, відповідає
gradually,
зниженню
which
тому зниженню облікової ставки.
is
Щодо
coinciding
депозитів,
with the
то
decrease
ті,
of the
що
key policy
на
rate.
12
Regarding the
місяців,
deposits,
вони теж
the ones which are 12 months, they are also slowly decreasing.
У квітні 24-го року
In April
інфляція
2024,
залишилась на тому ж рівні,
inflation
що і
remains on the same level as in March, that's 3.2%.
За цей місяць споживча
In
інфляція
this
зросла
month,
на
the consumer inflation grew by 0.2%, and if we take from the beginning of the year, it's from the 1.4%. The biggest was growth in fuel and lubricants, 3.7%.
Взагалі найближчі місяці інфляція очікується бути на низькому достатньо рівні, і потім вже на кінець
it will
другого
be
кварталу вона почне
in the end of the second quarter, it will be coming back to the target indicator.
Чому буде зростання
Why
інфляції? Так,
there will be the growth of
ціни
inflation,
з боку бізнесу, тобто підвищення заробітних плат, а також це
making
подальше відновлення
this
споживчого попиту і вже вичерпання тимчасових чинників, тобто це
and the definition of the temporary
все ще був
indicators.
ефект від
We still had the effect
минулорічних врожаїв
of the
та за рахунок м'якої зими.
previous years, and because of the
Тепер поговоримо про міжнародні резерви.
soft winter, let's talk about international reserves because they were slightly shortened. They still remain quite high. In general, there is some short decrease connected with the sustainability of the exchange rate and some foreign currency interventions to make sure that they can provide the rate stability. They remain at the level of 5.5 months of import coverage. Regarding the exchange rate, it was not fluctuating seriously, it was moderately reevaluating at the end of the month. In the early May, the NBU implemented its most significant FX restrictions easing package since the onset of the invasion. So it is now installed for business. Briefly speaking, we cancelled foreign currency limitations for works and services. It was allowed now to make repatriation of dividends. regarding the
пом'якшення обмежень у
rent
частині погашень зовнішніх кредитів, які є відносно новими, тобто після повномасштабного вторгнення, також погашення
after the
процентів
full-scale invasion
за старими
uh,
кредитами, тобто
under
до
the old
повномасштабного вторгнення і тощо.
loans.
І наостанок
And in the
поговоримо
end, I would like to
секції
talk
щодо
about
банків. І у березні попит на гривневі і валютні депозити, як строкові, так і
and the
беззабарання,
request,
продовжувався,
the
хоча
demand
ставки,
for
як ми бачили,
deposits
дещо
and
скоротилися. Взагалі, згідно
Grivna
нещодавнього
assets,
опитування банків,
well, it has been
то
growing
вони
slowly.
очікують про
They
подальше зниження
expect the
строкових
further slight
депозитів і
decrease in
очікують,
the
що така
interest rates,
тенденція буде і надалі, що відповідає так заяві Національного банку щодо можливого подальшого
and
зниження
there is a
облікової
possible
ставки.
further
І за
decrease of the key
поточними
rate.
оцінками
And based on the current evaluations,
квітні-травні
in April
банки
and in
очікують
May, the
все
banks
ж зростання
expect the
банківських
growth
депозитів,
of banking deposits,
незважаючи на їхнє
irrespective
поступове
of their
скорочення
gradual
по вартості.
decrease in
І
terms
щодо
of their
валютного
value.
кредитування, то вони
And
не
regarding
очікують,
the
що найближчі місяці воно
foreign
має
currency
скоротитися.
fluctuation, it should
Щодо
decrease
кредитів, то
in the next few months.
вони
Regarding
зростають
loans, they
серед усі види кредитів
face all
поступово у нас
types of
зростають.
loans,
Там,
have
згідно
some,
опитуванням банків, очікується,
we
що
expect
буде
that
продовжуватися
there will
зростання
be
портфельних
the
кредитів
further growth
бізнесу
of
та промисловому
loans,
впродовж
both
цілого
for
року, і
businesses
банки
and
продовжують підвищення
households,
якості
and the
кредитних
banks continue
кредитного
to improve the
портфеля.
quality of their
Також вони
loan portfolios.
пом'якшили
They
кредитні
have also
стандарти для
softened
споживчих
their
кредитів, але
standards for
посилили
the
для
consumer
великих
loans,
підприємств.
but
І наостанок
made them more
розкажу
tight
про
for the large
не
companies.
працюючі
And in the
кредити.
end, let me
Ставка
talk about the non-performing loans.
знижується,
Their
тобто
ratio
ця тенденція
is
триває
decreasing.
досить немалий час.
That's
Зараз це
been quite a long time.
36,1%. Взагалі, за рахунок чого вони
And at the expense of what
знижуються, так?
they have
Це
decreased,
списання непроцюючих
it's
ринкових
writing off
кредитів,
of the
безпосередньо
non-performing
банків
retail
з
loans by
ризиковим
banks with
капіталом,
Ukrainian
і
private capital,
також витрати банку
as
на
well as
відрахування в
banks'
резерви
expenses
кредитів
on
залишаються досить низькими,
sending
а рівень
some
дефолтів у нас
money to
знижується.
provisions.
А
So
на цьому
things
все.
are
Передаю
improving in this
слово.
respect. That's all.
Да,
And I would pass the floor to
дякую.
Gleb.
Останнє
Thank you, Masha. And the last
нашого
short
макро
review
потім
from our macro review. Let's come to Kharkiv. Yuri Gaiday, please. Let's talk about the situation with the budget.
Видно вже презентацію?
Good afternoon. Do you already see my presentation?
Так, все чудово.
Yes, we see it fine.
Ну, тоді
Good.
поїхали.
Let's go.
Власне, квітень був, спочатку
April,
поговоримо про надходження
let's talk
до
about
державного
the
бюджету.
revenues
Квітень
into
був
the
добрим,
state budget.
якщо,
April was good. If we look
брати
at,
податок
if we
на прибуток, який є сезонним,
take
це
out
сплачується
the
щоквартально,
income tax, which is
то
seasonal and is paid
надходження
quarterly,
решту податків до
the
державного
rest
бюджету
of
в
the
нас
taxes were
знову
coming once again.
обновили максимум.
They
В першу чергу, звісно, завдяки надходженням
improved their maximum, and with thanks to the revenues from the taxation, and we have good VAT dynamics, and we have the record excise tax revenues more than 17 billion hryvnia. Compared to previous year, we will not compare because there was some bonuses then. Nevertheless, knowing that we don't have any fundamental basis for the excise revenues increase, we can make some careful conclusion that this fight with tax evasion in the tobacco industry and in fuel is starting to give the first small results. And let's see how sustainable they are. We have also 5 billion growth from using gas. And as my colleague said, in the beginning, we have good results regarding metallurgy. So we have already some good results from iron ore. Regarding the expenses, here we have only the March data and March at the background of the good financing. It's more really about spendings. They were quite high if we compare it with May, June 2023. And if defense spending grew by 20% versus the previous year, for justice and law by already 63%. So that's a significant component. We understand the huge share within this is going to defense. I also decided to look at what's happening in the first quarter with the local budgets. Last year, we gave a lot of attention to this story, taking into account that the local budgets don't get the military income tax, which is partially substituted with transfers from the state budget. We can see that they aggregate revenues to the local budgets. If we make them average in a quarter, they were like last year. Actually, they even decreased slightly, while the expenditures grow in higher pace, and they are more than they were last year. So this accumulated surplus of local budgets, it's what we call the average temperature in the hospital. So it's really in the first quarter around 30 billion hryvnia. So we don't think that there will be a growth like last year. I think around this indicator it will stay. What concerns the foreign financing, in April, Ukraine received $1.7 billion of financing. This is the loan for the European Union, as well as the grant of 118 million from Japan. Japan has become really stable on the third place for the biggest donors after European Union and domestic bonds. It's important that this significant part from Japan is in the form from Japan is coming in grants, although they do loans in very beneficial conditions. It's important also to recollect that the Congress finally passed this large package of assistance to Ukraine, which includes also 8 billion assistance and budget support. Correspondingly, this is also something that would decrease this financial gap that the government needs to close this year, to bridge it, and will decrease the pressure on the macro stability. So we can see that so far in April, the foreign revenues, they only could cover only more than half of the main needs in financing for this month. That's all from this point. I will pass the floor to my colleague, Vyacheslav. Thank you. Slava, please. Vyacheslav is Nozdrin. He's a citizen of Kharkiv, the person who is coming from the city. He can really explain and describe what is happening. Thank you, Gleb. Welcome to everybody. On the first slide, we have this more general information regarding, maybe it will not be so interesting for Ukrainians as to the extent that it will be very much interesting to our international audience. Apart from the industrial assets, from the defense, we also have the good development of the IT industry, printing industry. We have also calculated that the city accounts for nearly, even now, it accounts for nearly 3% of the national GDP. This share has decreased slightly over the last 5 years. We have calculated that. Nevertheless, it remains quite significant. And in terms of the losses from the war, the second place is occupying the second after Donetsk, as well as for the length of air sirens. We have seen $30 billion losses for the region and some 10 billion for the city. Almost every day, the Russians are shelling the civil infrastructure. The population is suffering even after. Even before our event, the president and everybody else is talking about provision of anti-air defense that really affects so much the economy. Some more information. I think everybody is following Deep State, their links. We have some historical reference that The worst situation was the fourth part of the oblast. Then we had the counteroffensive last year, and now it's 1.6% of the territory. And unfortunately, this is the territory which is now again getting occupied in the Kharkiv region. Also, the situation is not. There was the ban to use the US weapons in hitting the Russian territory, but the distance from the front line to the outskirts of the city is just 30-40 kilometers. And the situation looks not so good there. Next, and this closeness to Russia, it also about difficult situation about the critical infrastructure. We're talking that now the electric supplies are coming from other oblasts. We can see that the key energy facilities, TETS-5 and Zmiyivska TES, are completely destroyed. The smaller have suffered from shelling, so we will be trying, most likely. I don't think we will be able to do that until the heating season starts. It's also shelling of the gas distribution systems. In Oblast, we have some extraction facilities. So if the transit is continued next year, we will see the increased risk that they will continue shelling the gas systems, compressors, and that increases the risks of going through the heating season in the future. We have also spoken to experts here. One of the solutions of the problem could be, and we know that the city is working in this direction, and this is the example for other cities. It's also the development of the distributed generation, like for instance the gas turbine generators, which can be hidden and installed somewhere underground. Then about demographics, we understand since the beginning of the full-scale aggression, the state statistics doesn't give us the data, but we have collected in this table the data from the official sources. The statements that were done by the oblast chiefs, the mayor of the city, we can see that they used to have up to 300,000 students. Most of them have left the city, and part of the people have left the city. Instead, there was some IDPs outside of Kharkiv region or from the Donetsk region have arrived. So there is this flowing of people. And we also understand that the students are making remote studies, so they choose to live in another city. The average age increases for the dwellers of Kharkiv, which is also not good. And also there's a stagnation in the labor market. It's you can see here the situation of how new job vacancies in Kharkiv compared to the average in Ukraine. We can see that the number of new vacancies compared to 2021, which is now at the level of only 40%, while resumes compared to 2021 only are around 45% of what it used to be in 2021. There is a very acute problem related to the mobilization of the staff for the existing industrial enterprises. We see only a small number of openings or expansion. That's also not good. If we look at the budget, not the budget, sorry, the biggest companies of Kharkiv, then comes the budget. With their revenues, we can see that the important role is played by the public sector, and for the state utility companies, they account for half of the revenues. Among these biggest Also, I would like to mention those who have suffered. There are a lot of assets that were damaged. We have some Kharkiv tractor factory and the Ukrainian energy machines. They are damaged. Also, Philip Morris Ukraine damaged / ruined. They have the situation in such a way that Philip Morris will be building, they're going to launch new production in the Lviv region. They're ready to return in case the situation is good. And then it brings us back into Patriots and the whole this anti-air defense. If possible, I would like to add here that this is the data before shelling, because we don't see there is the information here on about the latest wave of shellings regarding the energy sector. Good. To the budget, we see that this city becomes more and more dependent about something that Yuri Gaidai said about from the subventions from the state budget. In 2023, the city received 750 million of military income tax. We expect that this will be partially substituted at the level of 2021 or with some other volume from this year. Additionally, the city has budget losses from the tax benefits that were implemented in April, and individuals and private entrepreneurs received some benefits in paying taxes, and that means that the city will receive 1 billion hryvnia for the city budget. If the things go this way, that these benefits will continue, that means the deficit of the budget will grow. And this is the slide for the beginning of the discussion that will be moderated by Gleb. The biggest recommendation is the call for anti-air defense that will allow all other sectors to slightly better feel. Separately, we would like to support the issue about certain extension of tax exemptions. We also call on expanding insurance programs against military risks in Kharkiv, in the region. We also see in education underground schools. This could be also a way out for the education. There could be some other options. And definitely regarding energy, the network of underground distributed generation, probably this is the way out. This is the best way out, and we call on other oblasts to look into this direction, to look at it as quickly as possible. And I hope that the majority of the heads of the city know about it, and they know about these problems. Thank you, Slava. I would like to make the review of the participants of today's discussion after Slava's presentation. We have had Nadia Begun, the Deputy Minister of Economy of Ukraine. She had an urgent call, so she has to come back. Why Nadia? Because together with Nadia, we're working jointly, and we're trying to help in the development of the economic strategy for the biggest risks, for the biggest businesses of Ukraine, which are at risk. And we started from Kharkiv and Kharkiv Oblast. Also, we have a representative with us from the Ukrainian authorities, Yevhen Ivanov, Deputy Head of the Kharkiv Oblast Military Administration. Yevhen, after I have introduced everybody, I would like to ask Yevhen to take the floor first to give his feedback about what is happening in the economy of the city and how much it is aligned with what has been said by Slava in his presentation. Then we have Tatiana Gavrish, an honorary consul of Germany in Kharkiv, a lawyer, and knows a lot what tendencies are in Kharkiv business. And then I will ask Igor Gumenny to take the floor. Very well known in private business, the person who was developing the experts of machine building all over the world. He's the president of the UBS Group. And after that, Olga Shapoval can take part in the discussion, who is the director of Kharkiv IT cluster. This is the IT industry that Slava talked about. And finally, I would like to thank two representatives of the printing industry of Kharkiv, Alexander Popovich, general manager of Unisoft printing house, one of the biggest printing houses of Ukraine, which actually provides this variety of new books that we see after the full-scale invasion, and also the general manager of one of the biggest printing houses. Nadia is not here back with us. Yevhen, are you available? Can you talk? Can you talk now in our discussion? Because I see Yevhen is on the call, but he is not replying. Good. The colleagues, we will be back. So let us pass the floor to Tatiana in the order which I have proposed. Tatiana Kavrish, the Honorary Consul of Germany in Ukraine. Tatiana, you participate in several discussions, expert discussions in the framework of our research of what is happening in the economy of with high military risks. How do you see the prospects of Kharkiv using this neutral picture that Vyacheslav has shown us? Good afternoon, dear friends. Many thanks for the possibility to join this discussion. For me, it's a huge pain because it's good that we are talking about prospects and planning that inspires, but I will talk very carefully because on our agenda we have the issue number one is the security and survival. This is dominating the agenda, at least at the level of our feelings. But okay, for now, it's a good time for reflection. Kharkiv has a very special fortune, which is, of course, defined by its geography. It has only 30-40 kilometers to the border of Ukraine that is influencing and will continue to influence its fortune, its fate. And the second factor, its universities. It's also very important. The Kharkiv was founded on the crossroads of trading ways, and it used to be a fortress. It was a trading center, and it continued its status until 2014. The honorary consulate of Germany, actually the decision was taken in 2010, and it reported to the general consulate of Donetsk, of Germany in Donetsk, and the idea was to develop economic relations. At that time, Germany was looking with a lot of attention to Donbass, and Kharkiv was an important component. But in 2014, the situation changed cardinally. Kharkiv, which used to be a logistics hub, before 2014 became a place of nowhere, and the first negotiations with the German delegations, we discussed where Kharkiv is logistically. Of course, the development of airport helped low cost. Kharkiv was connected with the majority of cities of Europe, and that gave good prospects and allowed after 2014 to really renew for business, and until 2018, 2019 to equal out the balance, which was significantly ruined. Because apart from markets where we could make some sales, and Kharkiv was always oriented towards CIS and our northern neighbor, this was about consumption. Kharkiv has always been a serious hub for the citizens of Russia who used the infrastructure came over on weekends, but Kharkiv could renew itself after 2014. It reoriented itself to the European markets, African and Asian markets, and even the agrarian sector was reoriented to processing. Some 5 years ago, Ukraine-German advisory group in the Cabinet of Ministers helped Kharkiv to create agro-food cluster. After a good, thorough audit, this was our big victory, and we believed that should influence the environment. That's traditionally from pros. Out of cons, and I'm talking again with a great carefulness, there was a significant mistrust between the authorities and business. This has become part of the tradition because in the majority of cases, the companies of state and utility companies, they influenced the budget of the city. We have had, and we still have a lot of such companies. In Kharkiv, there are a lot of also educational institutions, which was also mentioned by Vyacheslav, and more than 300,000 students, including foreign students, who participated and who affected the market. So they consumed, this was very much felt, they left the city, and that has significantly affected the structure of the small and medium business who was giving such services. Something that was really bothering me over these years is the urge to build the environment which would be understandable for our German partners. And we were moving quite slowly because Kharkiv, like the majority of the post-Soviet cities, which felt not so bad, they had the proficit of economy, although there were still a lot of post-Soviet companies, they didn't have great motivation to create an environment that would improve the development of business and give the feeling to business that they're so much welcome here. This was a problem. We worked on that. We had the access to German cities, and we helped with various investors, like inside the country and from the outside. Unfortunately, we didn't get good results, but this transformation that Kharkiv is going through, it's stimulating to change approaches in terms of creating programs for stimulation of business. Even now, as was mentioned by Vyacheslav, the Kharkiv business has tax benefits for land and capital, because we understand that almost everybody has suffered, more or less, but all this time the business paid taxes, and this was a huge load within the risks that you can foresee. To start a new restaurant, hairdressers at own expense, that's quite difficult. But with this, you have to take into account such a specific transformation of the slogan, which was in the election campaign, was by Kernis. We are Kharkivites. So now that's part of the identity. Kharkiv is iron concrete, and that really affects the understanding of who we are. We only now are trying to understand that, and that's clearly seen in the certain outbreak of transformations in the cultural center, in the social sector. We see that there is really a change in the cultural environment, the creative. We have a crazy transformation in theaters. Kharkiv has always been the city for the artistic startups. Ukrainian Cultural Fund has helped always, which planted a lot of startups over its first years of existence, and since the beginning of this full-scale aggression, this creative places became the basis for the volunteering. The museum collects a lot of activity around them, and it's very important for really shaping this identity. Okay, the city is ruined is not only physically, it is also transforming existentially. We see some new identity being formed, but in order to plan something, we have to understand who we are going to be. Where is the city of Kharkiv's place in these conditions where it seems like there is no way out, as often analytics say, creation of the buffer zone and the availability of the border nearby, it defines the future of the city for dozens of years ahead. I really loved, like one of the influential German diplomats said, it's the Berlin until 1991. It's the element of democracy at the border with the totalitarian regime, but we have to think what else we can do apart from anti-air defense in order to define the future of the city and to talk in which way we can stimulate the economy and the business. Thank you. Many thanks, Tatiana, for this great introduction and strategic vision. Yevhen Ivanov is back. Yevhen, thank you. I understand that for the person who is working in the Oblast administration in such a crisis times, it's very easy, and all of us are now prone to putting out the fire. But how do you see the prospects of Kharkiv? And based on the situation that you have now, how do you see the situation and what it's like? Thank you so much, everybody, for the possibility to join your event. First of all, we have a very complicated situation in Kharkiv and Oblast, taking into account the offense that started from north, and the military of Ukraine are doing everything not to allow the enemy to the artillery shelling, because bringing artillery back to the city of Kharkiv, this could really complicate the life of the people, the work of the business. We understand it really well. So for the time being, the armed forces are staying strong at the northern front, and there was some tendency for the stabilization of this line, not to allow the enemy into the city. At the same time, we have shelling every day, not only of our bordering communities, but over the last 5 days of the invasion, Liptsi, Vovchansk, they're damaged and they're turned. They are very much similar to Bakhmut. Within 3 days, using these guided air bombs, we had a lot of, by the way, state companies. This was the logistic hubs for the grain processing. It is almost brought to zero with these guided air bombs, artillery shelling, and the fights in the outskirts. The second difficult situation is at the eastern front. It's Burluk, Kupinsk, a lot of destruction, a lot of IDPs. By the way, these IDPs in Oblast, we have almost 550,000. These are the persons in the other oblasts, and also the ones who are displaced within our oblast. For the time being, we have 1.3 million, and out of them, 500,000 is IDPs. So the city's profile, it has changed. The people are different now that live here and work here. We have to understand that. We have to accept that. We need, the authorities should take necessary action to make sure we would provide everybody with housing and workplaces, because these are new people, and majority of them, this 500,000, that's a social category. Women, kids, school children, students. And with all of that, we have 1.3 million in the city. The outflow of the city, unlike, irrespective of the fact of this new offensive, we don't see no company, no state institution, none of them has relocated during this week of becoming hostilities more active. People are not leaving, and the most resilient remain. Those who wanted or who could go away, they left in 2022. Those who stay and work, they will continue and to stay until it's all possible. Regarding the possibilities, what is of priority now for the lives of the people and their functioning of the business and companies? First of all, the secondly, and the third is energy. Energy, we were able to stabilize electric supplies and to decrease the blackouts. This was very important, but now we don't have new blows, but our energy sector is destroyed almost to zero. The heating season, if we don't take any measures, we will not be able to go through. And our international partners know about that. Of course, the governments of other countries know about it. The president and his team are personally on top of that subject. And most important is to provide the city until the heating season exactly with the gas turbine that will allow to provide the city with heat supplies and electric supplies. Because to renew our huge heat power station, heat generating companies, is simply not possible in such a short period of time. This is destruction for years, even if the money is available. So most importantly is energy preparation for the heating season. Without all of that, we will not have full-scale function of business and life of people. With all of that, we are providing, and factually, the majority of our heavy industry is provided with generated both as critical infrastructure in general, as well as hospitals. Majority of state institutions, administration centers, of course, they're using generators, but all of it is a very temporary solution. It's not really a global sustainable solution in general. If we talk in more detail about the economic profile of the region and about the business in general, before the war and factually now, that's how it is. Kharkiv is three significant components of shaping the budget. Number one, industry, medium and heavy. Second is agrarian sector, and number three is IT sector. These are the three pillars that shape the budget. The small business and services is only 5-7% of forming the budget, but it's still very important for its social component regarding the economy. Regarding the agrarian sector, the main problem, half of the foreign currency revenues, actually 55% from 2023, it was agrarians. Regarding agribusiness, Kharkiv region, it's actually in top 3 in terms of production. The main problems is mining of land, 1.2 million we had to sow. Out of them, 600,000 are mined. They need observation and demining. That's a huge problem. In addition to destruction of the agrarian machinery, the IT sector is working more or less. I mean, nobody can work in the region like they used to work before the war, but still IT sector is working, knowing because it's they are not so much dependent on the location. This is not a factory, that's an industry. It's working more or less successfully, and our machine building, I mean, in terms of the percent that they're paying taxes regarding the machine building and heavy industry, there are some changes of the profile in the direction of the military complex. The majority of our companies, they're working and they're engaged in the military defense. This is no secret, and that's a stimulus, something that we should bet in the future, emphasize in the future in terms of staff preparation. It is and it will be actual in the coming years and very likely dozens of years. We have the educational institutions, scientific centers. We have the biggest number of such factories in Ukraine that can repair or produce products, starting from the aerospace industries to aircrafts to heavy military armored machines. That should be a priority for us. So we do have this military complex. We have a huge number of private companies. Actually, there are more than 100 that are working privately, that are part of the defense industry, including in the directions of radio electronic and drones. The number of them is increasing. None of them is relocating from Kharkiv region, but I would like to mention that definitely in the beginning of the invasion, in 2022, there was an immediate outflow of companies. This was like 90% who left. But then, starting from 2022, and until now, we have a positive dynamics, not as quick as we would want it to be, but still the companies would return, they would reopen, and we have a slight decrease, although we have conscription ongoing. We see that there is the increase of the defense companies. Of course, a very strategic question is the construction of shelters, bunkers for companies, and very big priorities for educational institutions, because if we don't bring back the offline education, that's 300,000 of students, teachers, that's a significant part of Kharkiv population. Kharkiv is number 2 in terms of potential for educational and scientific centers. We have to keep that, maintain that, but unfortunately time is playing against us. The more we have this full-scale invasion, the more difficult it will be to keep people from going away and to preserve the scientific potential, educational potential. So the further, the more difficult it will be for companies. So the time is playing against us. Another global issue, we can't help mentioning it, it's the air defense. I know the oblast authorities are working to protect us from this radio-electronic fights, but I mean, anti-air defense, it's a strategic issue. The president himself is doing this without really a reliable anti-air defense to preserve and to keep the life in Kharkiv and in the region would be very difficult. Even 1 hour ago, some guided air bombs came in the center of the city. We have wounded children. That is happening right now, even during our meeting. This was in the center of the city. These guided air bombs are flying to the city on a permanent basis, but again, Kharkiv is iron concrete. That doesn't affect the people. People don't go away, and we are trying to work, and our companies, even in this very difficult mode. So very briefly, that's all. Many thanks. In case you have questions, I would be very happy to answer. Thank you, Yevgen. We talked about machine building. I would like to ask Igor Gumenny. I understand that part of your business is developing in the center of Ukraine, in Vinnytsia region, but historically this is coming from Kharkiv. How do you see this based on what Tatiana and what Yevgen said? How do you see the future? For Kharkiv economy, for long-term and for short-term prospects during the war. Good afternoon. I'm Igor Gumenny. I'm the president of UBC Group. All of my entrepreneurial life, it's connected with Kharkiv. I graduated in Kharkiv from the National Legal Academy, and I have been working in Kharkiv since then. For machine building, Kharkiv is the center where we have concentrated the biggest number of qualified staff in Ukraine, in the whole industry. This is our heritage from the Soviet Union, because this 300,000 students is the students of various technical universities. And if we would compare us with other regions of Ukraine, Kharkiv, even now, it's much simpler to hire technical staff versus even Vinnytsia, because in Vinnytsia we have a lot of businesses, but it has other traditions. So because of that, we have the management of Kharkiv, you said it absolutely right. The key factor of success of Kharkiv is to preserve these 300,000 students. If we are able to preserve this generation of young people, then Kharkiv, with the correct approaches after the war, it will be developing very quickly after the war. Now about our business. Before the war in Kharkiv, we had 2,500 people. We had one factory in Dergachi, one in Kharkiv. Okay, in Kharkiv, this was just everything that could arrive already arrived to that factory, because it was even in the vicinity of the firearms. So it was shelled hugely. From Kharkiv, the majority of the employees were relocated to Vinnytsia. In Kharkiv, we have some 600 people staying and working for us. And the main, and I would like to tell you that we will renew the production of Kharkiv as soon as the situation helps us in terms of the security, because physically we can't work under fire. The biggest problem as of today, apart from the war, is the energy sector. Our company, Promo, which is in Kharkiv, which is working and which has some 600 staff remaining. We're working during the day on generators, and we are trying to work at night from the regular network whenever we are given such a chance, because generators is something very much temporary emergency solution, because in essence the new generators, they can work only for 1 month and then they need repairs. So for the 1 megawatt of consumption that is necessary for us, we need 2 megawatt generators to work stable. And that definitely, of course, increases our costs, and that's the significant existential problem. The second problem is the issue of conscription. We have companies who are under this status of strategic companies, who have the possibility to make a reservation of their staff, not to have them conscripted. So this problem with conscription, we are working very much officially. We're paying the official salary because we have always been doing this. And for us, it's a problem to hire people, because people are afraid to work officially, because they will be conscripted to the army immediately. People would like to work only unofficially. And that's where it's necessary at the state level to decide the issue with this reservation. In the Verkhovna Rada, there is this draft law to give this reservation for the highly qualified staff with the official salary of 40,000 hryvnia and up. That definitely calls for a certain analogy that the rich will not fight, but to make sure that the company would work and would pay taxes into the budget, we should give the possibility to preserve the highly qualified, the biggest qualified staff who really our company depends from. And again, we are the export company. We have more than 70% of exports. And for us, it's also a huge problem that we can't, our managers can't leave for abroad. We're ready to pay collaterals, 1 million, 2 million, whatever is necessary to make sure that our employees would, for instance, go and have negotiations with Coca-Cola. And these issues would be very much good if they could find some solutions. What comes when it comes to other problems which we have? Definitely now we are solving the question with the energy, and we need to make some we need to make this total deregulation to simplify these procedures to connect to the gas, to electric energy. We have the law on connecting. On our factory, we had some 500-kilogram bombs were falling. Of course, gas connection suffers. In order to connect, starting from the project and ending with some specialist organizations, that's a huge procedure. And in case of the war, we need at least in these frontline cities all these procedures to simplify, because in life to these procedures we are adding the factor of the corruption, the income of the people who are responsible for these procedures. We don't have that much time, but these things need a lot of simplification. We have the war now. We are trying to adapt to the war, but our authorities, customs, tax office, they are living their own life. There is no war for them. I'm talking about that from the point of view that, for instance, we are exporting from Kharkiv, and all of our procedures with the warehouses, with these processes, they look really laughable. For instance, if you have a company in Bulgaria, and for instance, we are spending for customs procedures in Bulgaria, everything is in electronic format. Here we need to bring our trucks to the warehouse. We need all these personal contacts of the customs who are checking this, who can really unload, upload, and that is really slowly changing in Ukraine, even during the period of the war. So there is war in the country, but the question is, look, I'm not even touching the question about taxation. I'm only touching on the issue. Igor, please let us concentrate on Kharkiv, because we will not be able to fit with the overall state problems. We are sure to call you in to talk about taxes and customs, because we are working with the Ministry of Finances, with the Parliamentary Committee, and yes, we will be, in the coming months, we will be working in great detail, and it will be very much beneficial to have you on board. Okay, the question of interaction with the authorities, that's not a problem of the region of Kharkiv, it's the all-Ukrainian problem. And second problem, in order to develop the business in Kharkiv, we need access to the capital. The general loans, 579, this is beautiful. We have already used them up. That's a beautiful instrument, but no bank will not be able to invest in the equipment. I mean, who will take as a collateral in the place where there is shelling? Of course, we need to have to expand this 579 program. From the critical things, we should mention there was a very good initiative of the Kharkiv city regional authorities in terms of land tax. This is done absolutely correctly, and this is like for the first time in my history in business, the authorities have done something, such a step really in favor of business. And from the optimistic, before this call, I was talking to the director of our factory in Kharkiv, and he's saying that near the house in the center, some 300 meters, the guided air bomb came. And I told him, do you want to relocate to Vinnytsia if it's so unexpected, it's so unsafe? The company is here, and my wife is working in the National Legal Academy. So Kharkiv is staying strong, and nobody is going to go anywhere. And even for our business, we will be staying because people who are working for us, they don't want to relocate. For instance, from the relocated companies in Kharkiv, we have some maybe 7-8% only of Kharkiv citizens. The others who relocated, they came back. So we are doomed to return of the people. Many thanks, Mr. Igor. Now I would like to make this small balance from production, from machine building. Let me go over to what is less tied to the physical assets, to the IT industry. We have the following speaker, who is the director of the Kharkiv IT cluster, and then back to printing, where we have similar problems as what has been explained by Mr. Igor, and definitely with its own specifics. So Olga, as far as I remember, there was a research before that showed to which extent there was the decrease of the developers who are in Kharkiv compared to the pre-war times. This was, I think, as at the end of last summer. What is the situation right now? What is with Kharkiv business? Because we worked recently with the Kharkiv company, we helped regarding our website, so the business is definitely working. But to which extent it is, many things. Let me talk to this very short retrospective, possibly who will look at the figures. The first moment, the Kharkiv IT industry, this was 1.5 billion of foreign currency. This was the second place after Kiev. Some 500 companies. This was based on our powerful university community, and that's very important to understand this. It's very important to remember this when people say, so what is with Kharkiv? Is this a logistical nowhere? We have to understand that our super force is our people. In the IT direction, it's exactly that fact, because when we talk about when I was invited to the European Commission in Brussels, and I was performing in front of 700 managers, cluster managers like myself, I had this keynote speech about resilience. I was telling how we basically, as the cluster, what we have been doing in the first days, what we had to stop our existence. People were relocated when the full-scale aggression is there. In the first year, we grew by 2 times, and we have 600 members, and not the IT companies from Kharkiv, because IT companies, as you said correctly, they are not so much connected from the location point of view, but from the other hand, they are connected to the growth points of their business, where we have this Kharkiv education. Coming back to the question, we had 55,000 as minimum. It was 10,000. This was April of 2022. Then there was when people returned. Now I'm in the city of Kharkiv. I'm in the office of one of our companies. People started to come back, and now we have some 22,000 of people. These are the people who are not tied locationally. Their income allows them to live in any part of Ukraine. And if we tell about what Mr. Igor said, we don't have any transparent mechanisms of departure, but we can understand that people with money can allow themselves to go away. But somehow IT industry is coming back to Kharkiv. People with money, people with families are returning to Kharkiv. And what we have this tax patriotism in the beginning of the 2022. We propose this tax residency in exchange for reservations. There were some even scandals, and that continues, but I can tell you only 6% changed their place of registration. So people continue to pay taxes. Only several percent that they used this possibility of 2% instead of 5%. People were not using this. So this was the question. This is the reply, that business sometimes acts not as the state authorities are thinking about it. There is a certain disbalance here. And in 2022, 2020, we equipped some more than 300 hubs of resilience, Starlinks, generators, fiber internet, optical fiber internet. We look at this as we are coordinating between us, these offices and the hubs, because it's a community. We have a certain level of trust. And in these offices, we don't only have people from one company. People know that we have the cluster tip, we are coordinating people, so we have a gap. When we had this huge blackout some 1.5 months ago, the gap between the blackout and when people restored working was 2.5 hours. We coordinated, we found places where to work, so this was the question of trust. So the companies are allowing other people in there. So this level of I'm not afraid to be in the city in terms of the surrounding that we have around, from the point of view of the people. And from the point of view of the people, which is based on the city. So people have certain have some to ensure such risks and to work with risks like we work for Kharkiv programmers, something that we can get from Kharkiv citizens. Because when you are writing plans, if the war is in Europe, this is the plan which is written on the paper, and everybody knows who was working in Kharkiv, that plans only on paper, they break against the reality that we get. Now we have this story, and the story is developed. This trend was artificial intelligence. The Kharkiv was the capital. There is a huge university, huge number of educational process, because we had a big conference, because this was for the botany guys. It was not as fashionable as ChatGPT, because this is the super force of the Kharkiv programmers, because people continue to appreciate this education and what is necessary that the business would work. Something that we have hygienic here now, it's what Igor Huminy said. It's this reservation and living for abroad. Our industry is export-oriented. COVID has finished. If the client doesn't see us, and especially they see what we have, the arrivals here, they can see that everybody has already died here. But thanks God, we learned to live here. So something is happening. We moved under these two walls. Something arrived within this 200 meters, and that's our reality. We continue to work. So please give us the possibility to work. Give me a very specific proposal. Give to the business of Kharkiv 100% reservation. We have resolution number 76. It's working. More or less, there will be the reincarnation based on the law of reincarnation. So please give 100% reservation for 6 months to everybody who is working. Let's come back to the question related to the exit abroad. We are ready for some personal responsibility for people, ready to give collaterals. Everything is working. We can see a lot of advertising that we have seen, a lot of advertising that we see that will do you the possibility to exit, but we want to be the business who stays in the country, who pays taxes, that are actually cleaning after their arrival. They have to be paid for. These people, they should be paid for using our taxes, and the army is paid for using our taxes. We have to talk about that. And if we talk about the second option, this is also the question of education. That's the question that we have such a story, and that means that we have to make sure that people can study, and we have lots of children. People see this. We can see that Kharkiv, we have a lot of educational process. They are the biggest among all European colleagues. No European cluster has that many universities. We have 60.
Хоча б в гібридному форматі, як вони ходять, до речі, в Польщі, якщо ви знаєте, що в Польщі вони ходять.
You know that they're not going in Poland every day, they're not visiting the universities during the whole day.
Це має бути увага держави прикута.
So we have to have the attention of the state. So in the short term, medium term, and long term perspective, we need the assistance. We have to simplify this post-Soviet situation that Mr. Igor said, when the state owned all the property. And now the state thinks that they can dictate the conditions. This is rudiment. We are getting rid of the symbols, but we have not yet gotten rid of the Soviet aspects in regulation. So we are also working with the recruiting to the army, although it's not our thing. It's important to stop manipulating this tax aspects. We have these private entrepreneurs. This story appeared in the modern Ukraine. They don't have the possibility to reserve their peoples, their staff, because this is based on the Soviet structure. In the strategy of the national revenues, it says that there could be, again, everything that what is about taxes. We have Yuri, he will come to you, because we will be working very actively in this subject. So let us concentrate on Kharkiv, because that's very important for us, because we still have 15 minutes left. Apologies for interrupting you. Really great performance. I just want to leave 15 questions to my own personal, on my birth date to this printing, but I must have become the director of the printing house, but my life changed. Many thanks, Olga. I read your interview where you explained. I read your interview that you couldn't relocate, and you decided that it's not feasible. And I know that in this printing business, it grows, even during the full-scale aggression, irrespective of the difficult economic situation. But again, how do you manage this when there is a huge demand? There are some limitations, and you're also working with experts. I saw your stand from the fair in Berlin. So first about printing, and then I will come back to Viktor Kruglov. business of publishing. Many thanks again for inviting to this very interesting event, which gives the possibility to say about some of our own achievements during this time, which is very difficult for us, and to mention the problems which we have these days. Our printing house was closed on the 24th of February. We had to conserve the equipment and we were forced to stop. Apart from protection, there was nobody left. But to preserve our employees, first of all, not looking that we were forced to stop, we were paying the salaries and the material assistance. This was very principal for us. And the question number one, I would agree with Igor, that's very important for those who stay in the city of Kharkiv, is the provision of safety, security. This is something that you can really renew the work. So we were providing for the security, organizing the shelter for the printing house, and when we understood that there is demand for our work, then we renewed our operation in May 2022. Before the war, we had 360 staff in general. In June 2022, we had people returning. Enough people returned to Kharkiv, and this was really a huge achievement for all of us. And the number of people was 240, 250 people. That's approximate, more or less, the numbers. And today, in our printing house, we have 362 people. So we came back to the pre-war periods. Regarding the electric generation, in 2022, we signed contracts with foreign companies. We installed powerful generators to provide emergency supply of electric energy. Unfortunately, in March of this year, this was not the emergency. This became the mainstream for some time, for 2-3 weeks. This was like the main energy generation. Both, as Olga said, there was a stop for like 20-30 minutes just to reconnect, not more than that. Of course, we do have expert today, and I'm very much thankful to our ministry that allowed the departure of our employees to Frankfurt, annual exhibition in Frankfurt, in Bologna, but this was mostly women of our company, because the man is the commercial director. He managed to be in Frankfurt. For that, we thank you very much. We do have experts until the beginning. Until the beginning of the war, export was developing very strongly. Export was 2.5 million euro. We exported. It's not even products. We exported our services on printing in Europe. In 2022, the export didn't stop. We could make for international print publishing houses. We made books for 3 million euro. And in 2023, we could make positive step in this direction, and the export of our products to the European countries, 1.8 million a year. This year, we started to develop even with better indicators, and we really hope, let's put it this way, extend this growth. So at the expense of which we can do this? Thanks to our people who can exist and who can live and who can work in the city of Kharkiv. Thanks to the people who returned to Kharkiv in the summer of 2022. Because, as Olga said, as Igor said, our industry, they are very much intellectual. And to prepare the welder, we need 10-15 years. And we're using exclusively European equipment, absolutely modern equipment. And very much unfortunate, I will not be able now to find people who would quickly learn Of course, we are teaching women with this publishing equipment, printing equipment. We started our own program for the preparation of staff, but there are certain categories which need years to prepare. And people who returned today to Kharkiv and they live with their families, like, for instance, the late operated this guided bomb. Well, some 600 meters from my house, people are very much emotional, they're very much furious about this conscription. Instead of supporting the city, people are really in stress. If we want to preserve business in Kharkiv, it does not depend only from the printing industry. Any kind of business in Kharkiv, maybe it makes sense. I was not preparing myself, but Olga, I heard your call. Yes, give us some time. Maybe it shall be like half a year for the working companies in Kharkiv, really working companies, to give 100% reservation of employees. Kharkiv is the printing, publishing capital of Ukraine, and I think Viktor Kruglov will give more information. But today, I believe some 70% of the production capacity are placed in the city of Kharkiv. For you to understand the size, based on April result, we produced 1.3 million of books, various, hardcover, softcover, everything. We exported products to Belgium, France, Italy, Britain. The ordering clients are trusting us. We can only exist in case we have these orders, and if we are able to work, we can support the people, but we can only work only when we have the employees who can work. So that's a chain that you can't break. More than that, I still believe that we don't have the right to leave Kharkiv, because some 20 people are already drafted. Out of 100 people, 20 are already in the army. Unfortunately, we have already somebody who was killed. So we have to work with colleagues. They say it's very important for us. People who are living in Kharkiv, they are heroes, because for us it's important that we are protecting not the empty city, we are protecting the city where we have people who trust us. Yes, my level of trust to the military, 100%. I absolutely trust them. Correspondingly, I need to make sure that people would work. But how can I work if they will now draft all of my printers? I will have to stop. I won't be able to print it any other way. We're trying to make reservations through the Ministry of Education. I think Viktor will also emphasize that. We're sending official requests. The Ministry of Education gives the request to the Ministry of Culture, because we are printing books, textbooks for children. Unfortunately, we don't have anything except for promises. I'm not saying that we are in full stalls, but we need assistance in something different. Our company, we continue to invest in equipment. I would like to invite everybody, the local authorities, the regional authorities, that you would see how much of the new equipment is within our company. The level of investment last year, this was €500,000 we bought equipment. This year we already bought equipment at €200,000 approximately. We do believe in our army, and we are trying to work, because we understand without us, without Kharkiv, the publishing industry will be very difficult, and relocation will look like, not because it's difficult to transport it. I have really changed my attitude. Relocation from Kharkiv is definitely possible. difficult to move the equipment, difficult to relocate people, but this will look like we are betraying to our beautiful city of Kharkiv. I always felt that I'm a Kievite because I was born in Kiev, but now I believe I'm a Kharkivite from the big letter. That's my city, and I will not flee from anywhere. And apologies for my emotions, but I would like to thank you. I just wanted to emphasize, at the expense of our emotions, I wanted to emphasize our attitude. The problems are exclusively with people. The rest we will solve. Many thanks, Mr. Alexander. Yes, these emotions, they really emphasize what you want to pass through. Viktor Kruglov, publishing house. This Ranok publishing house, it's a big group that we know in a lot of other names. Victor, you understand, for you, you're not so much tied to the physical assets that Alexander was talked about. But the point is not only in physical assets. How do you see the situation? And do you have any, maybe Nadia can say a few words after you. Let us talk about the position of the government. I'm Viktor Kruglov. I am the general manager for Ranok printing house. We have the paper factory at the printing house, which is actually in the Kharkiv region. I would like to thank Alexander for the emotions, but I will try to be ratio. Last year, we published 4,200,000 books. Imagine in Kharkiv, we prepared some 2 books every day. Every day, 2 new books were printed. Why I'm talking about the importance of the publishing industry? Because the publishing really shapes our Ukrainian identity. And without this identity, without the culture and education, in general, it's not clear for what we are fighting. I heard somewhere the phrase that we need to compare the budget to culture, education, and science with the budget for defense, because if they're not comparable, seems like there is not much to fight for. And there was the economic event in Davos. A lot was mentioned about it. There was also an event that was mentioned almost by no one. This was the closed branch in Davos. There was a German general, and the topic was about the resilience of Ukrainians of this breakfast. And he asked what Ukrainians are reading. Even the German generals understand that one of the reasons for the resilience of Ukrainians is in narratives, in books, in education. That's very important. Now, which problems we have and what I suggest for the solution? It's the deficit of specialists, it's the security, it's energy, and the legislative policy plus money. I will not talk about security, it's the question for the state. And definitely we are donating, we are paying the radio electronic fight stations and jeeps that are taking the Shaheds down. Our printing house has done that, but we understand that it's more for the state with this. The second question is about people. We need some specialists. We are missing some specialists. And in terms of printing house or the paper factory, in case in our group, 23 people are fighting, they are protecting our land. But for instance, if
опермашиніст паперової машини,
the
на фабриці Зміївська паперова фабрика, де
operator
працює
of
більше 100
the
людей,
paper
фабрика зупиниться.
factory,
Тому
where we
що
have
все
more than 100
залежить
people.
від
This
того,
operator of
я не
this
беру виробника, я
paper
беру от людину,
factory
яка
will be conscripted, and the
головний
factory will stop.
керувач паперової машини.
He is the main operator of the
Тому
paper
я
machine.
вважаю, що
Therefore, I believe
або
there has to be
прийняти рішення, або
there has to
бізнес
be
вибирає, кого
a
треба,
decision
ну точно
who
залишити, тому що
exactly
ми,
needs
керівники
to stay,
підприємств,
because
знаємо, хто для
we,
нас
as the
найбільше
chiefs
критичний.
of the
Я
company, we
розумію,
know
що
who is most
всі ми,
critical for
у
us.
нас 23 людини служать, захищають країну,
23 people
але
are
є
conscripted, they
люди,
are protecting
від
the
яких я
company.
розумію, що
There
буквально
are
по
people
пальцям перерахувати цих людей, це
we
кілька
can
десятків.
count
І це все, це
like
за
using my two
зупинить
hands. It's several
і
dozens of people. If
доходи
they are
надходження. Я хочу
conscripted, this will
сказати,
stop the
що
tax
минулого року ми
revenues,
експортували
because
більше
last year we
150
exported
тисяч
more than
книжок.
150,000
Це,
books.
ну, я не
And
рахую,
that's,
скільки ми ліцензій продали за
I'm
рік.
not even talking
І це
about
дуже
how many
важливо, тому
licenses
що
we
більшість книжок,
sold
які ми
abroad, because the
експортували, це
majority of
українською
books
мовою, це
that we
покаже, що
exported, this was
українцям, яким
Ukrainian
сподобано, дуже
languages for
важливо
the Ukrainians who
зв'язок
are abroad. It's very
поєднувати.
important to
Те,
keep
що у
this
нас для
connection.
людей дуже важливо, це
And
наявність
what
освіти
else
і
is
культурних
important?
подій.
The
Тому що,
availability of education and cultural
тому
events.
що якщо не буде освіти, я вже не про студентів, а про дітей говорю,
I'm talking
і
about
офлайн, і
children.
якісної онлайн освіти,
If we don't have the high quality online and offline education,
ну, це буде проблема, тому що люди не
this will
будуть
be a
хотіти
problem,
навіть в
because people
небезпекових
will not
ситуаціях
want,
залишатися в
even in
Харкові.
the
З приводу
unsafe
регуляторної
situations, to stay in Kharkiv. Regarding
я
the
хочу навести
legislative
один
policy,
приклад
I
проблеми
want to give you one
з нашою
example
Зміївською паперовою фабрикою.
with our city
Паперова
paper
фабрика
factory.
єдина в
The
Україні,
paper factory is the only one in Ukraine
вторсировину
that
і робить з неї папір. Тобто
processes,
вартість вторсировини з, наприклад,
recycles the
з
raw
упаковки
materials and
Tetra
makes
Pak,
paper.
і плівка, і
Like
папір
from
складає
Tetra Pak,
10-ту долю від вартості паперу. Уявляєте, який
actually imagine
доданий прибуток тут. І ми
a lot is being done in terms of recycling, and we can't get the license from the legislators to import such raw materials because it's a lengthy process. We are doing this since November, and we can't resolve it with the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Ecology. What I'm proposing, what ways out I see from the regulatory point of view. We are still waiting that our city of Kharkiv, just to announce Kharkiv as a free economic zone. It's very surprising for me because when from Lviv, from district administrations, they are proposing to me, they are proposing to relocate from Kharkiv region to Lviv region. Supposedly they have this free economic zone with free connection to electricity, etc. As far as I'm concerned, the free economic zone has to be exactly in Kharkiv. Also, we need to simplify all of these regulatory things. And the second problem, because we have the deficit of capital, definitely the companies would want to buy equipment, but we couldn't take the loan of 579 because the bank demands the collateral, and the collateral has to be not in Kharkiv, but outside of Kharkiv. We understand that the bank who understands it will not give the loans without the collateral. We need military insurance, like what is being done in terms of the exports of the grain for the transportation corridor, how the government opened up the transport corridor. They provided insurance. Why we would not give to business? This could also be a good impetus for business. Only this year we have to print 1.6 million of textbooks from various subjects. Almost in every school, children will be studying using our
на жаль, більшість дітей
our
навчається онлайн.
textbooks, but in Kharkiv, majority of kids are studying online. We developed a special platform with electronic textbooks and interactive textbooks. We are supporting this already for 2 years and understand that we can't spend €1.5 million to support this platform. It's more than 300,000 students in Ukraine, abroad, and even children from the occupied territories. And that's very important that there could be some form of grants to support educational projects. If briefly this is it, the mood is to fight. I really wanted to have the smart support of the state. We don't really ask something really unusual. Access to loans, smart staff policy in issues related to conscription and security. We understand, of course, in which conditions we have to work. And we have a huge number of projects for the future. We have concluded a contract with Disney. We have our own Star Wars in Kharkiv. We are developing educational programs, digital platforms. We have started more than 1,000 of new books. When the Russian books left the market, we have to substitute the cultural product. Without the Ukrainian cultural product, we will not have our country, it will not exist. That's a very good prerequisite for survival, not only of Kharkiv, but of the country itself. Nadia, I know you're at the railway station, I can see that.
Наскільки ви змогли почути те, що казали колеги, мені здається, дуже добрий огляд ситуації по Харкову.
There is a very good overview of Kharkiv, what the ministry is doing and what are your plans. Colleagues, I apologize. This will be at the background of the usual railway content. Truly, I had the possibility, not the whole event. The last 3 speakers I could hear, our super force, it's the people, it's our business and what is happening in Kharkiv, and the way that the business in Kharkiv is continuing the resistance. That's something that inspires us, and we really thank them. I would like to thank the Center for Economic Strategy for joining the initiative that we are developing regarding the separate strategy for such resilience regions. We started with Kharkiv, and such dialogue is very much important. Definitely not only in Kharkiv. We hear from business that we need to solve the question with mobilization, and that's the top question everywhere. We have such an issue for other regions which are close to hostilities, so hopefully colleagues who are responsible for these issues, they will be able to quickly solve this. You know, all of these orders that we had for reservation, they were automatically prolonged for 1 more month in order to have this transition period to try to level it out. And through DIA, we will see this new procedure of reservation. Hopefully that can really help the business. Regarding the taxes, we also made a decision in Kharkiv, and we introduced the simplified model. That's a certain experiment. But from the other hand, I wanted that we really, from the situation where we can allow us afford various experiments and we can introduce various approaches. That was difficult to do it in the beginning. Now we have such possibilities. And once again, I would like to turn to colleagues from the Center of Economic Strategies. We would be very much thankful for the really brave ideas, brave approaches. We are talking about the free economic zones. Of course, there are no free economic zones in Lviv region, as everywhere that we have the single regulation. That's what's called industrial parks. And yes, in these industrial parks, you can have the possibility to be free from taxes during the upcoming 10 years and to have some infrastructure. But of course, we understand that there should not be equal conditions for Kharkiv and Lviv because they are not in the same situation. So thanks to at the expense of our policies and stimuli, we should give such cities as Kharkiv to give more. What concerns the loans of 579, we can see that not all the banks which are in the program, they are making lending with 579 program. I would like to say to colleagues that we can see that the state banks are lending more, and we are making a lot of efforts together with National Bank. We are now writing up the strategy on renewal of lending. We are making a lot of emphasis on the regions with resilience. The banks with private capital, of course, we can influence less, but the banks with state capital, we will be trying to influence so that they're in their strategies, in their approaches, would look at supporting business exactly in the resilience regions. But already now you can turn to state banks. For instance, if you're not in the state bank now, and maybe you can get a loan, we are ready to work with you. If you see that there is such a situation that the state banks are not supporting you, 100% collateral is definitely not needed because we have some portfolio guarantees and they're acting, and part of it can be offset through portfolio guarantees 70-30. Correspondingly, 579 should have been working, but again, ready for proposals, ready to change the program. The last which I wanted to mention, I want to remind you that we still have the grant programs. We have grants for production. We can buy equipment up to 8 million hryvnia through DIA. These are the grants for processing. You can submit your application in electronic format. It comes to Oshchat, and we are covering some 80% from the value of the project, but only for CapEx, only for equipment. So for me, we're still coming. Yeah, I think my connection is not perfect. Actually, we hear you quite well, especially for the railway station with this modern technology, so please continue. So I want to say that we would really like to target into a more comprehensive, rather than ad hoc, into a more comprehensive strategy, because it's right that we have to rethink the economic model for Kharkiv region, for Zaporizhia, for our other regions where the war would have a significant impact. But it seems to me that we have the possibility to rethink it in a better way, and these are our strong points, which we have, and we have quite a lot of them, a lot of our super strengths, to focus on them and to provide growth by strengthening those strong points which we have in the regions. Therefore, colleagues, many thanks to everybody. Kharkiv is the best, and I really hope that this nightmare will finish as soon as possible. Yes, we have some positive forecasts in terms of protection of Kharkiv after the fighters are with us, but that we need to see a little bit later. And we have a lot of inspiration that what I heard from the representatives of the Kharkiv business, and a very unusual moment, some 1 more minute, Slava will switch on the video, which is not a mandatory program. I want to thank to everybody who participated in our discussion, but this video really emphasizes this Kharkiv resilience, unbreakableness. And at this, I think he will be saying goodbye to you, but just 1 more minute, this short video, please. My name is Daud. I'm selling household items on Barbashova market. When the war started, I didn't leave because somebody has to work here. This was taken by the army, everything they came and gave everything free of charge. I saw this before. I am from Afghanistan. I saw this. So for me, I am not afraid. I'm the entrepreneur who worked, and you don't have to be afraid. Please come back. Everything is working. People are coming back. We have the consumers, not that much as it used to be, but yeah, we have them. Many thanks. Yes, together with the Ministry of Economy, we will be preparing proposals, and we will be trying as soon as possible to make sure that they would be discussed and translated into specific measures of the state authorities. We expected to hear more about the security problems, but we have seen more overall state problems, the ones that relate to the state policy, something that we should, as quickly as possible, respond. Many thanks to everybody. I really hope that we will be hearing more positive news, and this unbreakability and the investments that the colleagues were mentioning from the printing house, they will not stop, and they will allow us to keep the volumes that we have and to satisfy the demand that we have for Kharkiv. Many thanks to everybody. We will be continuing to shed light on that topic in our social media and media appearances. Wish everybody quiet night, especially to our Kharkiv participants, safety, and we'll hear each other in our next events. All the best to everybody. Thank you.